gather your rebel forces, be careful not to choke on your aspirations, and remember that podcasts are built on hope. That's right, we're covering Rogue One, a Star Wars story, this time on Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. Welcome back to another episode of Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. I'm Dan.
I'm Heather.
And this is going to be a rather unique episode because you might have maybe one of the most unique perspectives on the movie we're going to be watching today. Heather, what do you know of the Star Wars?
I know Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
Han Solo. I know characters.
Okay.
Maybe I should just say what my history with the Star Wars franchise is. I believe I saw the original 3 movies when I was a kid because my mom and my brother are fans, so I must have seen them. I don't remember them. I watched the first one, the original, a few years ago, and I don't really remember it. But I remember that I liked it. When I was a child, I was really into the made-for-TV movie Ewoks: The Battle for Andor. That was my jam. And I really don't think that I understood that it related to the larger Star Wars plot. I was just like, the main character is a little girl, and I was a little girl. And I was like, she's a little girl, and she has a furry friend. So I'm sold. What else do I need? Nothing. She actually has 2 furry friends. I just remember that. Anyway, and then now, very recently, we watched Andor. So that is the exposure that I have had to the Star Wars.
Yes. So I did twist your arm into watching Andor. What did you think about Andor?
It was good. I liked it.
It's a really good show. So that's your history with Star Wars. On the other hand, I have seen all the Star Wars films, most of the live action shows. I tapped out early on a couple of them, and some of the animated shows. So I would say I'm slightly more than a casual fan of Star Wars, but I couldn't name every single glubshido out there or anything like that.
A what?
It's an internet meme. It was referencing all of the different Star Wars characters and the fact that they all have kind of silly names. So someone tweeted at one point, Star Wars fans get excited about Glubshido, and they're all like, you don't know who Glubshido is? And it just became funny. Kind of a meme, basically, like every tiny little Star Wars side character is a Glubshido.
I thought it was real. I was convinced.
And I never saw the Ewoks Battle for Andor or its predecessor, Caravan of Courage. I don't know. Did you see that one?
I haven't seen that one, but I did know it existed because I believe I saw a combination DVD at the store once.
Also, I have never seen the notorious Star Wars Holiday Special.
I didn't know that existed.
It existed, and apparently it is...
In what era?
Awful. It was made in, I believe, either 79 or 80. So right around between the first and second movies.
Admittedly, I am not a Star Wars aficionado, but that feels tonally disparate.
Yes, it is notoriously bad. Elements of it are canon, apparently, but it is notoriously bad. And I think there was a documentary being made about it.
I don't know if Ewoks: The Battle for Andor is worth watching for the podcast, but we should watch it just for nostalgia's sake for me. And giving you another glimpse into the weirdness that is my mind.
Maybe we could do it for the podcast.
Maybe.
Well, either way, I got very, very into Andor. It might be my favorite piece of Star Wars content, and it's definitely up there in my all-time favorite TV shows. It's up there with Mad Men, Justified, The Good Place. It is just excellent television. So I twisted your arm a little bit and got you to watch it with me, even though you more or less knew nothing about Star Wars. So let's take a step back. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, which is its mouthful of a full title, was made a decade ago and released in December of 2016. George Lucas famously managed to retain the rights and creative control of Star Wars following the original movie in 1977 through his production company Lucasfilm, producing 6 live-action films in the universe and 1 animated film, which was really just a pilot for the animated series The Clone Wars. In 2012, though, George Lucas sold Lucasfilm and all of its properties, including Star Wars, to the Disney Corporation for just a little over $4 billion. So
that's a lot of dollars.
Yeah. After paying out that kind of money, the House of Mouse needed to recoup its cheese. They immediately rushed into production on Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, kicking off a new sequel trilogy to follow in the footsteps of the original 3 films, which would be produced and released over a 6-year period. This would be the first live-action Star Wars content since the close of the prequel trilogy with 2005's Episode 3. But they also announced an ambitious plan to create side movies that weren't part of the sequel trilogy that would also be released during this 6-year period. These side movies could take place during different times in the Star Wars continuity and didn't have to be part of an overarching story the way the trilogy movies are. Rogue One was the first of these movies. It takes place right before the original movie, so the 1977 movie Star Wars A New Hope, and it was inspired by text from that movie's opening title crawl. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Rogue One was also the first Star Wars movie to not follow a member of the Skywalker family.
Oh, how many are there? How many members of the Skywalker family are there?
Several.
Okay. I know 2.
There's more.
Okay.
I'm being vague just in case we do watch more.
Okay, fair enough.
So, Star Wars Andor was a follow-up to this movie, following the titular character Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, who stars in this movie. That makes Andor a prequel to a prequel that takes place after the prequels, but before the original trilogy.
I need a bulletin board and string to track what is going on here. And I also feel like, how far back are they going to go? The later it gets in the world, the earlier the Star Wars movies are going to be set.
Yeah, that is, well, I believe they're planning at the moment a movie about the Old Republic, which is 1,000 years before the original trilogy.
That's ridiculous. And I love it.
So you may be one of the very few people who has actually watched the show Andor without knowing where it goes with Rogue One or even the greater Star Wars movies. And so now you know why, while we're watching Rogue One, everyone who shows up that was in Andor might look about 10 years younger all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was wondering about that because you did mention to me the other day that the show was set before Rogue One and goes immediately into the plot of Rogue One. So I was wondering, are the same actors going to be in the movie? And it sounds like they are.
I will say that at least Cassian Andor is in this movie. So we'll see who else shows up. Do you have any expectations or hopes for Rogue One since you're coming to it? Basically, it's more or less functioning as a final episode of Andor and potentially a bridge to the greater Star Wars universe.
Well, I don't want my favorites to die because I never want that.
Right.
You know, it would be easier for me to weigh in on what I hope is going to happen if I remembered very much about what happens later in the original trilogy, but I don't. So, yeah, I don't know if I have any specific expectations or hopes other than wanting them to all get through.
Okay.
But only my favorites.
Only your favorites.
Yeah,
Who
not
are your
everybody.
Favorites?
Well, Cassian. And Mon Mothma.
Mm-hmm.
And we just finished the show. I should not be having such a hard time remembering all of the characters. His prison pal. He's still alive, right?
Yeah. Melchi.
I like Vel. I'm forgetting someone.
Will?
Oh, Will, yeah. Oh, Clea. Yeah. And B. my favorite. And K, my favorite characters.
K2SO.
They just call him K, so that's what I'm going to do.
Fair enough. All right. So to recap where we left off at the end of Andor, Cassian Andor has been summoned by a spy who will only talk to him. The rebels have just learned about the existence of the Imperial superweapon project. Saw Gerrera is encountering trouble on a planet called Jeddah, and all of this involves a scientist by the name of Galen Erso. So that's where we left off.
So I don't know who that is.
You don't.
Okay.
So are you ready to find out what happens?
Yes, I am.
Then let's watch.
You're currently calling yourself Lyanna Halleck. Is that correct? Possession of unsanctioned weapons, forgery of Imperial documents, aggravated assault, escape from custody, resisting arrest. Imagine if the Imperial authorities had found out who you really were, Jyn Erso. That is your given name, is it not? Jyn Erso, daughter of Galen Erso, a known Imperial collaborator in weapons development.
What is this? It's a chance for you to make a fresh start. We think you might be able to help us. This is Captain Cassian Andor, Rebel Intelligence.
When was the last time you were in contact with your father?
15 years ago.
Any idea where he's been all that time?
I like to think he's dead. Makes things easier.
Easier than what? That he's been a tool of the Imperial war machine?
I've never had the luxury of political opinions.
Really? When was your last contact with Saw Gerrera?
It's been a long time.
But he'll remember you, though. Wouldn't he? He might agree to meet you, if you came as a friend.
Okay, so that was Rogue One. What did you think?
I liked it.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was kind of a weird watch for me. I'll start out by saying that I really realized how little I remembered about the first movie, the original movie. And I did keep getting thrown off by the fact that Andor was a prequel. And it was just, I kept thinking, oh, I know these characters and I know that it's hard to explain, but I was thrown off by the fact that they looked so much younger. And I had to keep reminding myself that Andor comes first.
Right. Did they really? Maybe I have like youth blindness. I don't know. I mean, I know that they are obviously 10 years younger or so, but for the most part, I mean, the only one who really looked different was Bail Organa to me.
Well, yeah, he looked really different.
Really, really different. Yeah.
Yeah, he did not age well. No, eventually I did get into a place where I was like, okay, I get it now. But at first it felt like, because I've obviously seen movies or seen media where different parts are filmed at different times, but usually it would be a sequel. So at first I had to keep being like, no, I don't know what's happening now because everything that I've already seen has already happened. I don't know. It was weird. It's hard to explain.
But you liked the movie.
I did, yeah.
Even though it is kind of a bummer and you said you wanted all of your favorites to survive.
Yeah, no, I did not get my wish in terms of that. And so I was not pleased, but...
I mean, okay, so spoiler alert from here on forward for Rogue One and maybe some spoilers for Andor. So if you haven't watched the show Andor, definitely check that show out. We'll try to not spoil too much from Andor if you haven't seen it, but it's such a really, really good show. The characters from Andor who aren't in this movie, you can kind of presume that they all survived and continued fighting in the rebellion for some time. And I'm sure, again, glub shitos of it all, there are probably novels and comic books and who knows what else featuring those characters. So there may be an entire line of books about Bix or Vel or somebody else. I am surprised that Rogue One is as watchable as it is because this movie had a very famously rocky production. The movie has 4 credited writers, 3 editors, and an additional editing by credit, and the movie went through extensive reshoots to substantially reshape the film after shooting originally finished.
I couldn't tell.
Really? Okay. So the story behind Rogue One. John Knoll, a VFX supervisor at Lucasfilm, originally pitched the story idea way back in 2003. There was a Star Wars show that George Lucas was developing, ultimately didn't produce, but George Lucas had been looking to maybe make and was looking for story pitches for. And so that was it was originally pitched back then. After the Disney acquisition, John Knoll then dusted off his idea and pitched it, and they decided to go with it. They hired Gary Whitta to write the script and Gareth Edwards to direct. Gareth Edwards had made the low-budget alien invasion film Monsters. I haven't seen that one.
I haven't either.
People seem to like it. They said it was, at least good for a low-budget movie. And the 2014 Godzilla film.
I haven't seen that either.
The one with Bryan Cranston and I think Ken Watanabe.
I don't know anything about the Godzilla franchise. Like Bryan Cranston was in a Godzilla movie. Okay.
Would that be like was Jimmy Smits in a Star Wars? You would lose your bet?
I would lose. Yes. Bryan Cranston, I don't know. I just feel like he could probably be anywhere. So it's not as weird to me that he was in a Godzilla movie. Jimmy Smits he's New York. He's not in another galaxy. He's in New York.
After Rogue One, Gareth Edwards went on to direct The Creator and Jurassic World Rebirth. I haven't seen either of those movies, but they are not highly rated. So doesn't speak well for Gareth Edwards' filmography.
Aww.
Gary Whitta was primarily a video game writer, although he did write the screenplay to the movie Book of Eli, which does have some fans. I haven't seen it. And the M. Night Shyamalan movie After Earth, which doesn't have very many fans.
What was it called?
After Earth.
That's
the one with Will Smith and his son. And
I live under a rock.
It was before the Shyamalazance when basically M. Night Shyamalan was in movie jail. So, yeah.
Okay.
So after that, Chris Weitz was brought in to develop and add to the script. Weitz's biggest credits include Ants, the movie where Woody Allen is an ant for some reason, About a Boy, The Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, and more recently, the TV show Murderbot.
Wow, that is quite a resume.
It's very all over the place, isn't it?
I do have to point out that Ants, you're talking about Ants with a Z, the animated film, was my grandfather's favorite movie.
It was?
Yeah,
really?
I don't know why. He loved it.
Okay. After production began, screenwriter Tony Gilroy was brought in to write additional scenes and clean up and reshape the movie. Gilroy wrote the original Bourne Identity trilogy as well as his Oscar-nominated screenplay for Michael Clayton, which is a really good film. I think we might do that for the podcast at some point. There's also some controversy about who directed the reshoots. People have insisted for years that Tony Gilroy actually directed the reshoots and Edwards was pushed aside by Lucasfilm, but officially Gilroy was a second unit director working under Gareth Edwards' supervision. So there's been a lot of back and forth. It's hard to tell who is being gracious and who's, Hollywood is a small club, so people are trying to be gracious about it. But the finished result is largely accredited to Tony Gilroy coming in and rescuing the movie, apparently. In 2018, The Hollywood Reporter quoted Gilroy appearing on a podcast. "I came in after the director's cut. I have a screenplay credit in the arbitration that was easily won," said Gilroy. Unlike lifelong fans like Star Wars The Last Jedi's Rian Johnson, Gilroy was not a fan of the franchise before boarding and therefore had no trepidation about potentially messing it up. "I've never been interested in Star Wars, ever, so I had no reverence for it whatsoever. I was unafraid about that," said Gilroy. "And they were in such a swamp. They were in so much terrible, terrible trouble that all you could do was improve their position." Rogue One debuted to strong reviews, 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and earned more than $1 billion at the global box office. But Gilroy doesn't have plans to return to a galaxy far, far away. "It doesn't appeal to me," he said, of making another Star Wars film. "But I don't think Rogue One really is a Star Wars movie in many ways. To me, it's a Battle of Britain movie."
Oh, okay. Well, but then he did do Andor, right?
Yes,
okay.
Later Gilroy was brought in to develop and ultimately write and showrun the Andor series almost a decade later, so I guess he did find some appeal in Star Wars after all.
It is a kind of an interesting point that he didn't have fear about ruining it, because I think that there's validity to that, to having maybe fresh eyes and someone who doesn't feel that loyalty to the original or whatever's come before. But I also imagine that Star Wars fans might not love hearing that he didn't have reverence for the series.
Oh, Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans are a whole other breed. And if you really want to get into it, there's a very controversial movie in the sequels written and directed by Rian Johnson, actually, episode 8. We won't get into that too much. Some people think it's fantastic. Some people think it's the worst thing ever. Most people agree it's not the worst Star Wars movie, but it is very much a lightning rod. But I would say that one of the things that's really nice about Tony Gilroy and his approach to Star Wars is that while he may not have had a reverence for it, he at least has a respect for it. Because Andor as a show, when he was working with it, he would work with the Lucasfilm Story Group and he would say, okay, what are things that we can bring in? And just to talk about Andor for a little bit, there were things that already existed in the canon. So one of the things is when Mon Mothma leaves the Senate and publicly declares that she's joining the rebellion, she had already said something about a massacre on Gorman. So we knew that there was a planet called Gorman. We knew that there was a massacre there and the Emperor was directly involved, but that was it. And so the show Andor really fleshes that out and like really gives character to Andor.
So she said that in...
It was actually in Star Wars Rebels, which is actually, Rebels is an animated show that takes place parallel to the show Andor.
Okay.
It's about a whole different set of characters. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on. It's also it's a lot more kid friendly. It gets a little more mature as it goes. That's the one animated series I've seen the whole way through, and I actually really did enjoy it. Yeah, it's a lot more kind of kid friendly, a little more adventure-y kind of thing. So the show Andor kind of took that and ran with it and was like, okay, there's this thing called the Gorman Massacre. Let's really play that up. And they did it. It's fantastic. It's harrowing. It's really great.
That's a good episode.
And just they made Gorman a character and they made you care about them. Yeah. So he was very respectful of Star Wars while not being reverent for it. Whereas I would say J.J. Abrams in the Star Wars movies that he did, which again, you haven't seen there, he did 2 of the sequels. J.J. Abrams was reverent for the series without being respectful of it. He has a tendency to rehash things. And again, I don't want to make this is not movies we watched, but yeah, J.J. Abrams, I think, is reverent of the series, but not necessarily respectful of it at one point. Coruscant is a huge part. You know this now. Coruscant was the capital of the galaxy. At one point, J.J. Abrams wanted to destroy Coruscant and the Lucasfilm Story Group had to tell him no.
Oh my God.
So he had to make up an entirely different planet to destroy for one of his movies. So I think that's the difference between somebody who has respect for a franchise but not necessarily reverence for it.
I see what you're saying.
So back to Rogue One, the movie that we're actually talking about.
I'm overwhelmed. There is
There's
so much lore. And I'm sure there are other examples, and probably even things that I've watched that are not coming to mind right now. But this sense of lines and plot points that are retrofit with subsequent media is just, it's really, my mind feels like a spider web.
And it's hard to penetrate because it's 50 years now coming up in just a couple of years. It'll be 50 years of canon. We talked about this offline, but just for people who might not be familiar, when George Lucas controlled Lucasfilm, his approach to Star Wars canon was anything that I am directly involved in, the movies or the TV show, that is absolute canon. And even he contradicted himself a couple of times, really. So he had a very kind of laissez-faire approach to canon. He licensed out things like comic books, novels, a lot of different kind of ancillary media. And the attitude about that was, those are not really, those are canon until I say they're not canon. Or if they contradict each other, who cares? Just pick one that you like. When Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2012, they made the decision that we're going to do everything in canon. Everything is going to be one immutable timeline. We're going to keep track of all of this stuff. So they jettisoned all of the other works that weren't canon and basically sort of retroactively said if there was a novel or a book or anything that wasn't part of, canon originally, then that none of that counts. That's all legends now. But now everything that we make is canon. So that means everything that they've produced Star Wars, and they have produced a lot of Star Wars in the last 13 years, 14 years. They have produced a lot. Movies, TV shows, books, comic books, video games, all of that.
Everything's canon.
Everything is canon. So they actually have like a group of people that they have hired to keep all of this stuff straight. All of the TV shows they produced, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, The Acolyte, all Star Wars, The Bad Batch, Skeleton Crew, all of these shows. It is mind-boggling how much they try to fit into this timeline. And so as somebody who's not really a fan and is more or less new to it, I can understand why you would be a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. As we are recording this, I woke up about an hour ago from a 2-hour nap, and I feel like I immediately need another one just listening to all of this background. The other thing I will say is that I love it. I do really, in theory, love the thought of taking these bits and pieces and then expanding upon them. And I'm sure it was really cool for Star Wars fans. So it's not that I don't like that they did that. It's just more that I feel like it's really hard for me to get my footing, especially considering not only do I not have a ton of exposure, but I have, as you pointed out, that I have possibly the weirdest exposure to Star Wars media of all time, because I saw the original trilogy when I was probably too young to make memories, then the first one again and forgot it, a 1985 made-for-TV Ewoks movie, and then the television show Andor.
Yeah, it's a very unique perspective on the galaxy far, far away. So Rogue One, again, we're talking about Rogue One.
Yeah.
There was so
It feels
much.
like it is hard to talk about one movie, though, without really getting into a lot of other things.
It really is. There was so much unused footage shot for Rogue One that trailers for the movie were about 40 to 50% footage that didn't even make it into the final cut. So there are so many shots. If you go back and you watch the trailers, you're like, that's not in the movie. Some of that was apparently Gareth Edwards just kind of vibe shooting and messing around with cameras. So sometimes they would just be like, hey, this is a shot that looks cool. They would just go and shoot some extra footage at the end of the day. So some of that was more or less for the trailers. The original composer of this movie had to drop out of the film because of his commitment to do Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. So they brought in Michael Giacchino to compose and record the music in about 4 weeks.
Oh, wow. Well, it's good.
And they were editing this movie. They finished the cut of the movie, I want to say about a month before it premiered in December of 2016. So yeah, production of this movie was a giant mess, but at least it's watchable. And even somebody who's not a super huge Star Wars fan, you said you liked it.
I did like it. And I found it reasonably easy to follow. I am ashamed to admit that I did not actually remember until after we finished watching the movie and I looked it up and then looked up the plot of A New Hope. I did not recall the significance of the plans. So the fact that Rogue One is about getting the plans.
That's funny. Well, before we get to the recap, do you have any other thoughts or anything to share?
No, I don't think, generally speaking. I didn't know that Felicity Jones was in a Star Wars movie.
You did know?
I did not know.
What do you know Felicity Jones from?
Well, she was in, what is it called? It's the third Dan Brown movie. The third Tom Hanks is cryptologist movie.
Oh.
I don't remember what that one's called. It starts with an I.
Yeah, and it's a little weird because, especially after Andor, you've spent so much time with Andor, and he's really second banana in this movie. Like, Jen Erso, played by Felicity Jones, is the star of the movie. And, in the original posters...
I saw the poster. Her face is so big, and everybody else
giant.
Is teeny tiny.
And it does feel a little bit like of a shift where it's like, okay, you're not the main character. Cassian's the main character. Yeah. Why are we following you so much? You're new here.
That is how I felt.
This was my first time, by the way. I haven't mentioned this. This was my first time rewatching Rogue One. I saw it a few times in theaters. I think I've seen it at least once since it's been on streaming, home video and everything. But this was my first time watching Rogue One after Andor came out. So I, watched through Andor, the whole series twice now, once by myself and once with you. So this was my first time coming back to Rogue One and seeing it more or less with fresh eyes after Andor.
Was Cassian Andor a character in any other capacity prior to Rogue One?
No.
Okay. It's more confusing than I guess it should be, but just knowing, as you mentioned, a prequel to a prequel.
A prequel to a prequel that takes place after the prequels.
It's just so hard to wrap your head around.
Jumping right in. First of all, this Star Wars movie was the first Star Wars movie without an opening title crawl. That was a big shift. The movie just drops you right in with that very hard cut and that kind of hard trumpet noise that's just like, this is not a traditional Star Wars movie. We find the Erso family hiding out on a farm. Galen Erso, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Did you know Mads Mikkelsen was going to be in this?
I don't know that I even knew who Mads Mikkelsen was. I know the name, but I'm not sure. Do you know if I've seen him in anything else? Anything
I don't know that you
together?
Would have. I know he's most famous for the Hannibal TV show.
I didn't watch that, although it was recommended to me by many people.
Mads Mikkelsen, Galen Erso, is hiding on a farm with his family. Orson Krennic, not director yet, based on the rank on his chest, shows up, played with great flair by Ben Mendelsohn. This was, I think, the first thing I had seen Ben Mendelsohn in, and I think he's fantastic. He plays Krennic so over the top with such dramatic flair. He's such a great bad guy.
He has a couple of great lines in this first scene. The first one that I noticed was when Galen says that his wife died, and he says, "My condolences. Search the house."
Yeah.
The other one I will mention in just a minute as you continue on with the recap, because you're going to say what happens next.
Yeah. Oh, well, what happens next is baby Jin goes and hides, and...
But you say baby Jin, but she's like...
Yeah, like young Jin, played by some child, goes and hides in a secret bunker, and his wife shows up, and this is probably the line when he said, "Oh, back from the dead," or something like that.
No, that was a good line too, but actually I made a note of the line that after the wife shows up, he says, "They have a child," and it reminded me of, now I know that you don't remember Titanic, and that is on our list to watch, but there is a very famous line delivery of Billy Zane's in Titanic when they are getting on the lifeboats, and he goes, "I have a child." Sounds very similar.
Mrs. Erso shows up, tries to shoot Krennic, but just wings him, and the Death Troopers make short work of her.
Yes.
Galen gets kidnapped, and Jin hides and is rescued by Saw Gerrera, played by Forrest Whitaker.
Yes. I have a question at this juncture.
Yes.
My question is, did I miss something while taking a note that made it clear that this was happening in the past?
No, again, the movie just kind of drops you into it. So at some point, you know that like this is, you kind of piece together, because it immediately, right after that, it shows Jin, and we flash forward to Felicity Jones as Jin Erso in jail. So you can kind of piece together.
I didn't piece that together.
Because they, but it might take you a minute to catch up, but it wasn't really, they don't do you any favors by telling you like times or anything like that.
I did not get at first that she was the same character, and that might just be because I feel like they do kind of sometimes flash between characters in the movie, but I'm also thinking specifically of in Andor, where suddenly you're just like with a new character, and it's like, okay, so I don't know, is this 10 years in the future, or are we just with someone new now? It wasn't until she was describing that opening scene of her mother getting killed and that I was like, oh, Felicity Jones is the child.
There you go. I mean, that's good that you could at least make that connection, even though they didn't necessarily hold your hand there for it. I do want to say, I think it's interesting that the first time is ever mentioned on screen in a Star Wars is in the show Andor, when they tell you that it begins in 5 BBY. And I think that's the first time that they ever really reference the time period that was mainly only used for like Star Wars nerds on Wikipedia before.
In fairness, I probably also could have figured out that there was a time jump, because when Forrest Whitaker first shows up to rescue Child Jinn, he is bald. And then the next time we see him, he has crazy hair again.
Yes.
But I was just confused.
It is Star Wars, to be fair. Forrest Whitaker making very interesting choices about the way Saw Gerrera talks, and then having to stick with that. This was the first appearance of Saw Gerrera, but Forrest Whitaker went on to play the character multiple times over multiple...
And he always had to talk like that.
that.
That sounds like it would be painful. I did not realize from Andor that his name was Saw. It's hard to tell if is it like Saul? Is it Saul? I thought maybe Saul like S-O-L. I'm like, I don't know, like the sun. We're in the universe. I don't know. I was very happy that it was Saw for reasons that everyone listening should know by now.
Which is?
Jigsaw.
Right. So the movie flashes forward to the present, which is 1 BBY with Jin in jail. Cassian meets his informant on the Blade Runner planet. I don't know. I forget the name of it. The informant tells Cassian about the pilot, and then Cassian shoots the informant in the back when he can't really escape because he's wounded. So that was sort of
It was a mercy kill, I guess.
It was a little bit of a mercy kill. And also, I mean, it fits with Andor. There's a lot of that where especially people who are working with Luthen have a tendency to discard informants or people who have been on their side for survival, which is fair.
Cassian is pretty trigger happy.
It's fitting with the movie because this is again back in 2012. This is the first time that we're seeing a movie that isn't really just about heroes versus villains. And there's we're introducing a little bit more shade into the Star Wars universe. And so it's an interesting way to get you acclimated to, these are not necessarily, we're not following Luke Skywalker and the heroes
the
and
virtuous.
Princess Leia. Yeah, it's not that kind of It's not that kind of story. So it's an interesting way to begin it. But it also, originally when I saw the movie, it did make it a little bit hard for me to root for Cassian at some points.
That's what I was just thinking, because I was going to say that's a bold choice when Cassian is going to be the hero that we're following, but then he's not really. But to me, he was, because I watched Andor before I watched this. My brain's going to explode. Let's just, I got to just accept it.
So then we have Bodhi the pilot, Bodhi played by Riz Ahmed, who had gone to become an award-winning actor, most notably for his work in The Sound of Metal and the HBO series The Night Of. I've not seen either of those, but...
I haven't either. I've heard of The Night Of. I've heard it's really good. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've even heard of the other one, The Sound of Metal. Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to say The Sound of Music.
No. But Riz Ahmed plays Bodhi the pilot. He defects to Saw Gerrera on the planet Jeddah with an urgent message, but Saw's people are pretty mistrustful. Again, this is another thing that I think Andor really helps flesh out, because Andor drives home that these are different rebel factions that aren't necessarily working together, and Saw's faction has stayed to themselves where the rest of them have grown up and formed up and become an alliance.
So honestly, that was something else that did kind of confuse me as we were going through the movie. So there wasn't really one particular part. And even having watched Andor, where I was like, who is on whose side here? Because I did think that everybody that we were watching were rebels, but then they seemed like, and I know Bodhi was a defector, so they didn't trust him, but it was more like Jin and Saw's kind of contentious relationship. And I was like, wait, I thought they were both on this, and I was confused, but then I forget who it is. Someone says Saw is an extremist. And then I was like, okay, now I get it. Like, they are fighting for the same cause, but they have different ways of going about it. So that's why they're not all one big happy family. But at first I was like, I don't know who's siding with who are whose allies.
That's fair. There's also, in the first few minutes of this movie, they jump around a lot. There are a lot of location changes. So you might have been in a slightly better position, especially coming from Andor, because at least you were familiar with some of the characters. But I could see that you could be a little off balance if you weren't really familiar with the Star Wars universe. Even as a longtime fan, all of those location shifts in the first, 10 minutes or so of the movie can be pretty off balance.
That first location where the Urso family was beautiful. That was gorgeous.
Their farm.
Mm-hmm. So pretty.
So we then go back to Jyn in a prison transport truck. The rebels bust her out, and K2SO's first line is, "Congratulations, you are being rescued. Yay! Please do not resist."
Woo!
K2SO, played by the great Alan Tudyk.
I was so happy.
He's so fantastic. Everyone was very excited when they did introduce him and give him an origin story in Andor. So it was great to see more of him.
Question about that.
He made such a great impression in this movie that everyone was, for Andor season 1, everyone was just like, when is K2SO going to show up?
Aw. I mean, it's really tragic, though, because he ends up getting destroyed. Those droids, that type of droid, remind me what they're called?
Imperial KX droids.
Okay. Had they appeared before?
No, the first time they had shown up was in Rogue One, which is also funny because you have to think about, they are very effective, especially when you see them really wrecking shit in Andor and how powerful they are. You got to think, well, they really should have used those more often later on.
That is, so what I was just thinking is, it is great to see Kay, and it's great that, and I can understand why people will be like, he's so great, we want a backstory, but you only see one other of those droids very briefly, that Jyn shoots, and then Kay is like, did you know that wasn't me?
There's also,
do we see them?
He hijacks one on the base in Scarif to find out where they need to go. So there's the scene where
still, they're not nearly as intimidating as they are on Andor.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem of prequelitis when you introduce new things in movies or TV shows that take place before a thing that's already been made.
Well, so now they need to do another prequel where they explain how all of those droids got destroyed, so they couldn't be used in later.
You know what? That is... Honestly, they probably would. At some point, they probably will have some sort of throwaway line about that. So they take Jyn back to the rebel base on Yavin 4, technically. They are surprisingly cool with Cassian after what he just went through. If you're watching Andor, this has been like 2 or 3 days since the end of Andor, and Cassian just broke protocol and didn't follow orders to rescue a friend, and then they turn around and unground him because he has to go talk to the informant who he ends up shooting in the back. But then they're also just very cool with him in the beginning of Rogue One. Yeah,
they have bigger fish to fry.
Jyn is debriefed by the Rebel Council. Jimmy Smits shows up as Bail Organa. The shot when he first shows up is funny, and I wonder how you viewed this, because for Star Wars fans, it was like, Bail Organa! And it was kind of a surprise that he was there, because Bail Organa, again, this is probably going to hurt your brain a little bit. Bail Organa is a huge part in the prequels, the ones that came out from 99 to the early 2000s.
The Phantom Menace and
the episode
others.
1, 2, and 3. So they were the prequels. Bail Organa plays a very huge part of that.
Is it Jimmy Smits?
It is Jimmy Smits. He's a senator, and he plays Senator Bail Organa. So having him be at Yavin is like a big deal. So that's why there's that shot of him, and he just kind of comes out of the shadows, and it's like, Bail Organa! And he doesn't say anything the first time you see him, and it's like, oh, that's a fun shot for fans.
Yeah.
And for you, like, having known that Bail Organa, but the Benjamin Bratt version of him was already there. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, this is Jimmy Smits now.
And you had warned me about that when we were watching Andor. You did tell me that Jimmy Smits played the character the rest of the time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that shot that you're talking about, that happens after we are already seeing the rest of the council. So I was like, well, of course he's there. I know he's there because I just saw Andor and he was there.
It's so funny. It's so funny to think about, because it was a big shock for Star Wars fans who didn't know that he was necessarily in this movie. So that's fun. Some
of the people on the council look better to me in Andor than they do in this movie. They've aged well. Mon, that actress, I think she looks better in Andor than
Genevieve O'Reilly.
Genevieve O'Reilly.
She's fantastic. I want to talk for a second just about how awesome Genevieve O'Reilly is in Andor. It's such a great show, and they just lucked into her because she happened to look like the actress who played the character in Return of the Jedi. So she was cast for a scene that was mostly deleted in episode 3. So in episode 3 in the early 2000s, when George Lucas was shooting it, there was a scene that was going to be about the formation of the Rebel Alliance. And it was going to be with Bail Organa and Mon Mothma. And so Genevieve O'Reilly was cast for that scene, was cut from the movie. There's like one shot where you kind of see her face and you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's Mon Mothma because haircut and red hair and everything. So they brought her back for Rogue One to play that part in Rogue One. And she's fine in Rogue One, but she doesn't have a lot to do in Rogue One. But then they brought her back to play the part in Star Wars Andor, and she kills it.
She's amazing.
In Andor. She's so good.
She is really good. Also, there's another guy. I don't know if he's actually on the council or if he's just like, he feels more of like a soldier or something to me, but it's the other guy that's not the bearded one.
Draven?
Is that who that is?
General Draven?
Is that the same actor in Rogue One and in Andor?
Yes.
Okay, I also think he looks better in Andor.
That's funny.
And somehow the amphibious council members looks better in Andor. Probably because special effects. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just like, he also looks better, or she, I'm not sure. Don't mean to assign gender. I don't remember what the voice sounds like.
That would be Admiral Radis.
Okay. So they're looking great these days, more recently.
That's funny. General Draven gives, back to the plot. This is going to be a nightmare.
No, we can stay on task now, I promise.
General Draven gives Cassian secret orders to kill Galen Erso if they find him. So they agree to take Jyn Erso to Saw Gerrera because Saw Gerrera might know where Galen Erso is, and Galen Erso is key to this Imperial superweapon, this planet-destroying Imperial superweapon that they are just now learning about. So they head to the planet Jeddah. K2SO is, by the way, the best part of this movie. I love him so much.
He's the best.
The line when they talk about the odds of Jyn using the blaster on Cassian, do you know what the odds are? And he goes, it's high. It's very high. That line lives rent-free in my head. I love it so much. It's also fun because it's a little bit of a subversion of a Star Wars trope, because there's scenes where C-3PO gives like actual numeric odds that are ridiculous and like lots of percentages. And so K2SO asked the question, but instead of giving an actual number, he just goes, it's high. It's very high.
He gets no respect. Cassian is so mean to him.
He is, but it's funny. They take off in Cassian's U-Wing, which is featured in Andor, so it's fun to see that again. Saw interrogates Bodhi, the pilot, back on Jeddah, and then we also go to the Death Star finishing construction, and Krennic meets with Grand Moff Tarkin, also known as Governor Tarkin. Did you find anything weird about Tarkin in this movie?
I feel like there's a specific answer to this question, but I mean, he looked like a skeleton.
So Grand Moff Tarkin is a major character in the original Star Wars in the 1977 movie, played by Peter Cushing, an actor who was famous for doing a lot of horror roles and things like that. Peter Cushing died
was this CGI?
In 1994. Yes.
Okay.
So they tried something a little different, even though some characters have been recast. Like obviously Mon Mothma was recast, General Dodonna was recast. So characters who had appeared in the originals were recast with people who looked like them. For whatever reason, they thought, what we'll do for Tarkin is we will do a CGI Tarkin. They got the permission of Peter Cushing's estate, and then they had somebody who could do an impression of him, and then they did a CGI Tarkin face on this actor. First of all, I was wondering if you noticed, like while you were watching the movie, or if he just looked a little off, a little uncanny valley. I think most Star Wars fans knew going in. They actually made kind of a deal about it. Before the movie came out, there was promotional material and stuff talking about how they resurrected Peter Cushing more or less for the part. I will say, and I wonder if the version we watched what was on Disney Plus, and I wonder if they've ever gone and touched it up a little bit, because I do remember watching it in the theater thinking it did have a little bit more of an uncanny valley feel to it. Now watching it, it actually does seem like it's aged decently well. Like his face does look fine. My problem with it has always been that the animators couldn't really help themselves. And he's animated a lot more like an animated character where his face is kind of twitching a little bit more than Peter Cushing's actual face did. And that to me is kind of where it falls apart.
But I wouldn't know that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was definitely a choice. Definitely a controversial one, but it's interesting because I didn't tell you about it beforehand because I wanted to know if it was off-putting for you or if it took you out of the movie, but apparently you didn't even notice.
No, I didn't notice. I mean, I did not like his face because it looked very sunken and just evil. But
to be fair, that's just what Peter Cushing looked like.
Well, so that's the thing is that like
1977.
maybe I didn't look super closely because I was like looking at you makes me uncomfortable for a number of reasons. Maybe the CGI was subconsciously part of that, but I didn't notice it.
So Jin, K2, and Cassian now arrive on Jeddah. I have a note that says K2 is such a lovable dick.
Aww.
I think that's the scene where he drops the bags. Jin hands him the bags and then he just drops them. That's very funny.
He is lovable. I'll give him that.
Saw uses the weird truth alien to read Bodhi's mind. Some of this stuff, it is interesting. There's a lot of stuff that you can tell this movie was a mess of ideas because some of these things don't really pay off and almost detract from the plot. Like, I get that the point is you're trying to kind of shorthand say that Saw is not too different from the Empire. He's just fighting against them. He's an extremist or whatever. But the fact that he uses a weird mind control alien on the pilot who is volunteering the information and the information impacts the plot, but Saw doesn't need that information. The rest of the characters do.
Right.
So it's one of those things where there's just a lot of narrative dead ends that are the results of this movie being such a mess in production that it does kind of seem like there's a lot of twists and turns that really do go nowhere. And Saw using the weird mind reading alien on Bodhi is one of those. Our heroes, the gang, go to the Jeddah marketplace. That scene feels probably the most Star Wars, like especially after the prequels were produced in a very different way and took place in a different time frame under different circumstances. And so it was fun to see in Rogue One, this Jeddah marketplace scene felt very Star Wars. It felt alive with puppet characters and people in makeup and it just felt a lot more alive than some of the prequel moments did. And
I obviously can't really speak to that, but I did enjoy this scene.
Oh, first of all, we get the line, rebellions are built on hope, which is nice. I love that they had the origin of that line from the
Who
hotel.
said it first?
The hotel guy in.
That's right.
On Gorman.
I knew I recognized it, and I was like, "Who said it?" In Andor. That's right. The guy who looked like he was a munchkin, or
he's dressed a little bit like a munchkin from the Wizard of Oz, isn't he? Yeah. No, that line came through. So it's again, that's another great moment of Andor taking something in this movie and expanding on it and really making it worth it. So again, if you are a fan of Star Wars and you haven't watched Andor, I don't know what you're doing. We meet Chirrut, who is played by Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen is a known martial arts actor. He hasn't done a lot of English language roles, but he's done some. He also apparently really likes to play blind guys.
Oh,
because
interesting.
He came into John Wick 4 and had a character written for him and apparently pitched that character also be a blind martial artist.
And he's not blind.
He is not blind.
Okay. Is he saying the Force be with you to a bunch of people in this scene that we're talking about?
Yes.
I felt like I was in church. Peace be with you and also with you. The Force be with you and also with you.
Yeah.
I don't think they say his name for a bit and then later they said it and I was like, are they saying churro?
Chirrut anyway.
Chirrut. I also did note, is the Force Kung Fu? Because when he starts using the Force, or he's doing something and he's a martial artist, is that using the Force?
He is. In theory, yes. He is Force sensitive and he is using the Force. He is not a Jedi.
Okay.
They make it explicit. He and Baze, who is the other character with him, are former guardians of the Wills, which is they were non-Jedi who guarded the Jedi temple, but the Jedi have been eliminated something about 20 years in the past or so. So the Jedi temple was just kind of there and they didn't really have a lot to do.
Well, what exactly is the Force? Give me a short answer, please, because we're already going really long.
The short answer is the Force is explained later on. So we will watch other Star Wars movies. Okay. The short answer is the Force moves between all living things. It connects them, it binds them. But people who are Force sensitive can use the Force to do things that would otherwise seem impossible or unnatural. So they can use the Force to do things like levitate or do great physical acts or to have a bit of a premonition.
Okay. See, because I ask because I obviously have heard of the Force and have heard of Jedis just from cultural osmosis. But I think my biggest exposure to the Force is actually in Mallrats. At the very end of the movie, Silent Bob is trying to save a videotape. He's trying to reach a videotape that is just beyond his hand, and he tells himself to use the Force, and then it falls into his hand. So I thought it was like, what is that called? Telekinesis.
It can be.
But so that I guess I was under the impression that it was only telekinesis, but it obviously is not. So that makes sense that the martial arts moves that Churro is doing, I'm gonna call him Churro, are also the Force, because I did not really understand what it was. And I was like, is it Kung Fu?
And also his premonition. And he also senses the kyber crystal around Jin's neck, because kyber crystals concentrate and are very strong in the Force. So that's how he's able to see Jin, even though he can't see.
Now, is he an authority figure of some kind?
He was a former guardian of the Wills.
Okay. Does the Empire care about that?
Not anymore.
Does anybody really care about that in the movie that we encounter? Because I'm asking because when Cassian and Jin get stopped by the stormtroopers, he's like, let them pass in peace. And I was like, why would they listen to him? And then later, I think it's when Jin is talking about, I'm just going to jump ahead for a second. When Jin is talking about the image of her father that she sees, the holographic recording, they're skeptical. Some of the other members of the group are skeptical. And then Churro is like, I believe her. And I'm like, he's talking with a lot of confidence. Like, people are going to defer to him.
I think that's just him being very confident. He is, in fact, I mean, he's a blind guy who can do a lot of really cool stuff. So, but I don't think, no, there's not really any special way, especially since the Jedi have been supposedly long extinct. There's still a few hanging out, but mostly, out of 10,000, there's fewer than a dozen.
Oh, wow.
At the moment. So yeah, they were all, they were a little genocided there at the end of the Clone Wars. Yeah.
Genocide is rough. You can quote me on that.
So we meet Chirrut and his buddy Baze. I had the hardest time remembering Baze's name. In fact, the first time Chirrut says it, you can't even really quite understand what he says. So it wasn't until later in the movie I was like, oh yeah, there's Baze. And then while Cassian and Jin are trying to find their way to Saw Gerrera, Cassian notes, this town, it's ready to blow. Another thing, again, that Andor, I think, really does flesh out, because Cassian has had experience firsthand in several situations where towns have boiled over. So it's nice that, like, oh yeah, no, he does. He knows. He's been through it.
Yeah, I didn't even question that. And that is another thing that I wonder if it was like, well, how does he know that?
Yeah. So a bunch of Saw's rebels ambush an Imperial patrol. They start a shooting fight. This movie is a lot more explodey and actiony than Andor. There
are some cool explosions.
Big gunfight. At one point, one of Saw's rebels is about to drop a grenade that'll hit Jin, and so to save Jin's life, Cassian shoots that rebel, which gets him into trouble later on. They are about to get captured by another KX droid. Jin shoots it in the chest and it goes down fast. And my thought was, okay, we've seen the other KX droids take a lot of abuse.
I did not think that weapons were effective against them at all.
And yeah, he goes down with just one shot. So maybe it was just a lucky shot. Maybe Jin was just happened to hit the right spot at the right angle. The gang does get captured by Imperials. Chirrut intervenes, which is what you mentioned, with his stick. And then Baze comes in. I wrote down big guy with his big blaster. Then Saw's people capture the gang. After they beat the Imperials, then Saw's people show up and they capture the gang. They take them back to Saw's headquarters. Saw and Jin catch up, and then Saw shows Jin the message that the pilot carried back, which is a message from her father.
Did they say that Saw raised her after he rescued her?
Yes. Raised her till she was 16, and then people started to realize who she might be. So he left her behind and basically abandoned her because he thought that it would be safer, which, given the people that we've seen Saw working with, probably, I mean, he probably could have done it better, but also probably was safer for Jin.
Yeah. Shades of Luthen and Clea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Jin sees that message, and Mads Mikkelsen says that he left a flaw in the Death Star, but then right then they decide to go ahead and test fire the Death Star onto the city of Jeddah. The gang just barely escapes, but Saw Gerrera stays behind to die.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye, Forrest Whitaker.
Bye-bye, Forrest Whitaker. After that, then Governor Tarkin takes command of the Death Star, pissing off Director Krennic. Cassian and the gang fly to Galen Erso's secret facility, and Cassian gets told once again, if he gets the chance, assassinate him. They talk about Galen's message amongst themselves. Now Baze and Chirrut are with the gang. They go to the secret facility, and Krennic arrives at the same time to start cleaning things up because Tarkin yelled at him for doing a bad job with security. They decide to have a meeting outside in the rain for some reason.
Yeah, that was an unusual choice.
Hey, it's a moody shot. It's cool, but also it seems impractical. Cassian lines up his shot, but doesn't take it. My note is Cassian is now 0 for 2 on assassination attempts.
Yeah. At some point around this time, Churro asks somebody if Cassian has the face of a killer.
Chirrut asked Baze. Yeah.
Okay. And I said, no, he doesn't have the face of a killer. He has a face of a little doll.
Diego Luna?
Yeah. He looks like a little doll.
Okay. Is that a good thing? Do you think do you think Diego Luna's cute?
He is cute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then Krennic goes ahead and executes all the engineers. The rebels stage an attack, even though they didn't know that the gang was there at the secret facility. So the rebels stage an attack, and Draven can't recall them. X-Wings fly in. This is a fun scene for Star Wars fans because this is the first time that we've gotten to see classic X-Wings in action, because the ones in the sequels are slightly different. So this has been the first time we've gotten to see classic X-Wings in action since 1983. Fun combat scene in the rain. Chirrut has that really cool shot where he uses the Force and then shoots down a TIE fighter and takes out the cannon with it. So that's really cool. But Galen is injured by a rebel torpedo explosion. The Death Troopers and Krennic go ahead and skedaddle.
What's a Death Trooper?
They're the ones in the black outfits.
Oh, okay. I had questions about the different colors. So black are Death Troopers.
Yeah.
White are Stormtroopers.
Yes.
What about the beige ones?
Those are Stormtroopers in desert gear. Or beach gear, actually.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much the rest of them are Stormtroopers.
So are Stormtroopers just like more protection and Death Troopers are weapons?
Death Troopers are like elite Stormtroopers, essentially. Okay. They're like the elite kill squad as opposed to Stormtroopers, Stormtroopers are supposed to be advanced soldiers, which is why there's like regular dudes who are just in like regular uniforms. I
was wondering, are they really that scary? Because we see a lot of Stormtroopers just get mowed down with very little fanfare.
That is, again, it's another problem of you have Stormtroopers who have to be cannon fodder for the heroes to shoot down. Yeah. And so Stormtroopers are supposed to be excellent shots and things like that, but then they have a reputation for not being able to hit people.
Well, I mean, it was so many of them. I wrote, it's like shooting Stormtroopers in a barrel.
You're probably not the first person to have that thought. That's very funny. So after Krennic escapes, Galen gets to say goodbye to Jyn Erso, and then he dies, gives her a little bit more information. The gang escapes on a hijacked Imperial shuttle, and
this is where I wrote the V-shaped lights are the ship's butt. So this is where that ship appears.
It is
importantly.
Funny. they head back to Yavin. They're told to hang tight, but Jen says they need to go and they need to get to Scarif because they need to find these plans while they can before anything happens. There actually is a clock. I think it's a bit of a stretch to know that the rebels think that there's a clock because we know that they're trying to cover their tracks and wrap up things, but the rebels don't necessarily know that there's a clock on this thing. So the movie has a clock. The rebels are acting like there's a clock, but they shouldn't necessarily know that there's a clock.
Yeah.
But, I do think it's funny after, again, this is another thing that maybe Andor is less consistent about is Cassian freaking out about disobeying orders.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, we've seen you.
He loves to disobey orders.
We've seen you. And in fact, it's even a little internally inconsistent with the movie because in the beginning, doesn't K2SO have a line about like they disobeyed orders like 16 or 17 times?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, he is keeping track.
Krennic then goes to Mustafar. Mustafar is probably the only location in this movie that doesn't get a little caption that tells you where you are. You just show up on a lava planet and you're like, oh, Star Wars fans know where it is. You were probably like, okay, it's a lava planet.
Yeah, pretty much.
To meet with Darth Vader. This scene is probably the most unnecessary scene in the movie.
Did they just want to have Darth Vader?
They wanted to have Darth Vader in it. Krennic just shows up to basically wind Darth Vader, which seems like such a bad move. Emperor Palpatine has Tarkin and Vader, and they're kind of like both his number 2 dudes, and Krennic is just kind of in the fringes trying to work his way up, and there's a power struggle, of course. So I guess Krennic is thinking that he can play Vader against Tarkin.
He hasn't seen the later movies.
Yeah, it's a little unclear how this is gonna work itself out or what his intentions are, but I think he basically just goes to Vader to cry about Tarkin taking over the Death Star, and that doesn't work out very well for him. Vader is basically like, no, go to Scarif and clean up your mess.
Yeah.
And then chokes him. Another thing that's not great about it, they did bring James Earl Jones back to voice Darth Vader, but James Earl Jones, I think, was in his 80s at this point, and he sounds it. Darth Vader does not sound like Darth Vader. There's a couple of line deliveries where you can hear the age in James Earl Jones's voice, and
I didn't notice that, and maybe that's because I don't have that familiarity. I mean, I've obviously heard Darth Vader, but it's not like seared into my memories. So I was like, that sounds like James Earl Jones, but I didn't really notice him sounding old. But I mean, he was sad that he died.
It is. Yeah. They actually, and Disney made a deal to be able to use a James Earl Jones sound-alike and or AI to replicate his voice for Darth Vader for time immemorial now. So anytime now that they're going to have Darth Vader, it's going to sound like James Earl Jones, but it's either going to be an impersonator or it's going to be an AI or both.
Okay.
But they had not made that deal yet, so they actually got James Earl Jones back, and he doesn't sound great.
Aww.
He does sound...
He's tired. Darth Vader's tired.
He's only supposed to be about 40 here.
Well,
he's in his 40, 45 or so.
There's been a lot going on. He needs a nap. So that's why
he just got out of his nap. He was in his big back to chamber and he gets out.
Well, I don't know. Well, he's just waking up. I also sound a little bit.
That's it.
Yeah. When Krennic, he starts coughing or something, and I feel like, does somebody say something like, what's wrong? Because I wrote, he's got a nasty case of the Force.
That's funny. Yeah, Vader, you can kind of see Vader's choking him a little bit. Yeah. And then he says, careful not to choke on your aspirations,
I get it.
Which also, again, Darth Vader was not really known for his dad jokes. He's got a few lines where he's got a little bit of a
but he is the most famous dad of all time.
That's true. We go back to Yavin with Jen speaking to the Rebel Council. The lady in the gold hood, I don't know her name. Star Wars nerds are going to know exactly who she is, but the lady with the gold hood, she's also in Andor, and she is consistently the one with the worst ideas.
Is she the one that I said was annoying me in the last episode of Andor?
Yes.
Because she was just so negative.
Yes, they have her in the same outfit in Rogue One, or rather they had her in the same outfit for Andor. And so, yeah, she just is consistently the worst ideas on the Rebel Council.
She's annoying.
But then Cassian, Melshi, and the gang, and and a handful of cannon fodder. They get ready for a suicide mission to Scarif. Bodhi says the thing again, rebellions are built on hope, and they take on the call sign Rogue One, which does have some significance because later on in the later movies, Luke Skywalker leads Rogue Squadron. They take their name from Rogue One.
I forgot to wonder what the name meant until this part. I was like, I hope it's like Air Force One.
Mon Mothma asks Bail Organa to find his hidden Jedi friend. That would be Obi-Wan Kenobi, and maybe they can get a message to him. He says he has the messenger in mind, someone he would trust with his life. We'll find out who that is in a little bit.
I can't imagine.
The shuttle with our intrepid heroes makes it through the gate on Scarif thanks to the Force. There is a weird flirty vibe in a few scenes between Cassian and Jyn. It's left over. Apparently, at one point, there was a romance between Cassian and Jyn. They decided it wasn't necessary. They didn't like it for whatever reasons.
Bix?
But there's some shots that I'm sure are just left over from that. And so there's this weird flirty vibe, and it almost feels like Cassian is cheating on Bix.
Yeah, for sure. And there is a moment where it looks like they're about to kiss.
Yeah. And some of that, again, is probably just from the mess of the production of this movie. Baze says, good luck, little sister. He's known her for like half a day at this point, or maybe a day or two at this point.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah, I guess. There's a fun moment where K2SO is about to say, I've got a bad feeling about this. That's a line that's in all of the mainline Star Wars movies. Different characters say it, but I've got a bad feeling about this.
Who says it first?
In the original, I've got a bad feeling about this. I want to say it's Han Solo.
That's what I would have thought. That's what I would have guessed.
I'm going to feel really stupid if it's not, but I'm on the record. I'm pretty sure Han Solo is the first one who has that line. But K2 is about to say, I've got a bad feeling about this, but he gets interrupted by Cassian. Krennic arrives on Scarif as well to try and get some more information about if Galen Erso had made any more leaks or anything like that. And then Melshi starts the ground battle, and the final big action set piece starts. The rebels go ahead and dispatch since they know that the Rogue One team is already on Scarif. So they go ahead and decide to commit to it. We have a fun little R2-D2 and C-3PO cameo.
I missed that. I must have been taking a note.
R2-D2 and C-3PO were there for just a brief moment. C-3PO says something about what's going on. No one ever tells me anything, basically. So the rebels have their big fight on the beach. It's a very gorgeous scene. It was all over the previews for a good reason. The AT-ATs, the giant walking four-legged tanks, they are terrifying in this.
I wrote shooty elephants or maybe camels.
Yes, shooty elephants. They are all-terrain armored transports, or AT-ATs.
Okay.
I want to call them AT-ATs, but officially they are abbreviated as AT-ATs. So things seem to be not going great for the guys on the ground, but then the rebels show up and a big space fight ensues, and this is a fantastic scene. It's a really, really great space fight.
Good. Thank you for telling me.
I mean, I love it.
Well, I get really bored at action scenes.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know what's happening. I am not really that invested until the fighting is over and I figure out who's survived, who's died, what the outcomes are. But when the action is happening, I'm like, I cannot follow any of this. It's all just loud, explodey.
Oh, but the loud exploding is so much fun.
I'm not saying it's, I just, like, I can't really figure out what's going on. So it's like hard for me to get that into it.
They also had some fun moments. Gold Leader and Red Leader are characters who were in the original movie, in the 1977 movie. So they went back and they found unused footage from the movie, and they got the actors back to dub new lines. So they have characters who are in the Battle of Yavin is like a week from now, basically a week from Rogue One. So they had those characters back and just to have them appear. So that's a fun bit, just fun. For especially for Star Wars fans. They're like, hey, glub shittos.
Yeah.
Also, Red 5 gets blown up. There's a scene where they call out specifically Red 5, and Red 5 gets blown up, and that leaves the position of Red 5 open for a certain Tatooine farm boy to take over for the Battle of Yavin just a week later.
Tom Sawyer.
Yes, Tom Sawyer. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Jyn, K2, and Cassian sneak into the records area. Jyn finds the plans for the Death Star under her nickname Stardust. Then K2 is holding off an Imperial assault.
He got really good at shooting people.
He did. He got very good at shooting people, but K2 is our first hero to go down.
That's what I wrote in my notes, and that's exactly how it was in my head.
You did. You showed me your notes.
I showed it to you.
There were a lot of O's after
so many
that
O's.
note. So yes, K2 was the first one down. It is very sad. Meanwhile, in the ground battle, Chirrut has to go hit a switch so they can send a signal out to Admiral Radiss's ship. He goes and hits that switch, and Chirrut is the next of our heroes to go down, which sends Baze into just an absolute batshit rage, which is fun to watch though. But now we've entered the period where it's kind of like, okay, watching this movie the first time, and I don't know if you got this sense, but watching this movie at this point, I was like, oh, they're all gonna die.
Everyone's gonna die. Yeah. Everyone's dying.
Bodhi gets the message out to Admiral Radis, but then he gets blown up with a grenade, and then Baze also gets blown up with a grenade as well. And at some point, I believe Melshi gets shot or blown up in there too. We don't really.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, he's there. I think he's the reason when Chirrut goes. I think he kind of gets shot, but there's like one guy who's like, I'm gonna go, and he gets shot very quickly, and then you see kind of a brief shot of Melshi laying there next to Chirrut, so that's when Chirrut goes. Aww. In the records room where they have the weird elaborate device to pull out hard drives, they have to go manually retrieve it because the stormtroopers have shut off the power. So while they're climbing up there, Krennic and a couple of death troopers show up. Cassian knocks out all the death troopers, but then Cassian gets knocked down. Jyn, however, does get the plans and then escapes up the top of the chamber through a weird video game door that opens and closes.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
It's just opening and closing on a timing, and so she has to kind of time herself through it. But I'm like, there is no reason for that door to do that.
That's
other
funny.
Than it's just a video game thing. And the space battle, the coolest part, I don't know, you may have clocked this. Admiral Radis has a cool idea. He takes a cruiser, and there's a disabled Star Destroyer, and with the cruiser, they push one Star Destroyer into another Star Destroyer, and they push both of them into the shield gate, which does disable the shield. And that's a very, very cool scene.
That was cool. Yeah.
So lots of explodey stuff. Jyn is able to realign the antenna and transmits the plans to the rebel fleet once the shield is down. Krennic joins her up on there, and he says to her, "Who are you?" Which echoes another really great scene in Andor. Another scene that is enhanced by Andor. Then Cassian just straight up shoots Krennic in the back.
I think it was kind of a fake out about Cassian because we see him get shot, but then we don't it's when Krennic gets shot, it's like, who did it? And I'm like, of course it was Cassian.
Right.
Like, I know this.
The Death Star shows up, and the rebels up in space mostly bug out. Tarkin goes ahead and decides to zap the base on Scarif to eliminate any last evidence of the Death Star and also just to kill everyone. There are, again, a few kind of slightly romantic looks between Cassian and Jyn. It's strange, but ultimately they go out hugging, and it's a platonic hug because they are engulfed by the beautiful explosion that is the single reactor Death Star explosion. The rebels download the plan into a Star Wars USB thumb drive, and then Vader shows up for pretty much everyone's favorite scene at the end of the movie when Vader shows up and is like a horror movie character, the corridor scene. And just rips through a bunch of rebels on that ship. That was one of the last scenes they actually shot, so that was part of the reshoots. Gareth Edwards, the director, is one of the rebels who Vader eviscerates.
Dream come true for him, probably.
What did you think about that scene, about Vader just tearing up everyone like a horror movie monster?
I mean, I liked it because I like horror movie monsters. I didn't really have any thoughts beyond that. I was like, This seems on brand for him, I guess, was my ultimate thought.
Well, one guy just barely makes it away from Vader's rampage, makes it onto a little Corvette that detaches, and that is Princess Leia's ship. It's actually the first ship we ever see in a Star Wars in the 1977 original movie. That ship flies off, and they hand deliver the plans to a CGI-faced Princess Leia, and she gets the last word of the movie, hope.
It's what rebellions are built on.
Mm-hmm. That was actually before Carrie Fisher's untimely death, but they did take her line from young Carrie Fisher because Carrie Fisher's voice did age from all the cigarettes and drugs. So that line was from one of the earlier movies, but they did get her permission to de-age her and put her face onto a stand-in actress and make her look like she did in the original. There's some controversy about how Princess Leia looks since the last shot of the movie. I think she looked fine, honestly. I think she looked better than Tarkin.
I mean, again, I didn't really notice the CGI. With Leia, I did think that must be CGI because I do know what Carrie Fisher looked like, and it was a different experience than with Tarkin, I guess, maybe because I just don't know that face as well, but I didn't think it looked bad.
And then the movie cuts to the traditional Star Wars end credits music and traditional Star Wars credits, so the blue credits on the Starfield with the traditional end suite. And that's it. That's Star Wars Rogue One.
Yeah. I liked it. It does. So honestly, it does make me want to watch more so that I can contextualize things. But at the same time, that also makes me want to go to sleep for 20 years like Rip Van Winkle.
There's a lot. So we don't have to, I'm not going to twist your arm. And also, honestly, a lot of it is not great. I wouldn't expect you to watch the animated stuff, especially the Clone Wars. There's years and years and years of the Clone Wars, and it's very kid focused. The prequels, it would be fun to get your to get your take on the prequels. The sequels are controversial at best. People are split on episodes 7 and 8. People who tend to like 7 more don't like 8 very much, and people who tend to like 8 don't like 7 very much. Universally, everyone pretty much hates 9. You will find very few defenders of 9. It's called The Rise of Skywalker. It's the last movie actually that they made. J.J. Abrams directed it. It also had its own production craziness because they were trying to make a deadline, and it's a mess. I don't expect you to dive into it as much as I've been enmeshed in it, but it would be fun to see your reaction to not just the original trilogy, but some of the stuff like the prequels and maybe the sequels. So just to see your take on them and to get into it. But I'm glad that you're on board with the Star Wars.
I'm open to it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like in the last year, I guess, maybe a little bit over a year, I have had more exposure to both Star Wars and Star Trek. And I feel like I am definitely more team Star Trek. And I'm not sure exactly why that is.
Well, a lot of Star Wars is the explodey shooty stuff that you said you have a tendency to tune out, whereas Star Trek has a tendency to be more character driven and philosophical.
I think there's also the fact that, I don't know, I think it's easier for me to get on board with TV shows as opposed to movies. That's just because episodes are more contained than, like long movies in terms of, I don't know, I tend to absorb them better. And also I would say that even though there are definitely in the Star Wars things that I have seen, but specifically Andor and now Rogue One, there are comedic moments and there are elements along those lines, but Star Trek is just more fun, I think.
Really?
I find it to be a little bit sillier, I guess, in some ways.
Honestly, I think that's really because you are primarily coming at it from Andor. Andor is a very serious show.
Okay.
And Andor is the outlier in the Star Wars universe. Andor is the most adult thing that they've ever done in Star Wars.
All right, fair enough.
Most Star Wars is silly. I think at one point George Lucas told someone that Star Wars is for 12-year-olds. And it really is.
Okay, that's a fair point.
So, yeah. So Andor leading into Rogue One is almost like transitioning, like now we've had the dark stuff and we've been in the gray and now we're going to transition into the explodey, shooty, adventure stuff. But the rest of Star Wars is mostly kid-friendly Ewoks.
All right, yeah. I did love Ewoks. And I know Ewoks are controversial, but they're so cute.
That's part of the reason why they're controversial.
Well, to me, a small child who didn't have an understanding of Star Wars, I was like, I like Ewoks. And on that note... I'm Dan. I'm Heather.
And thank you for listening. And we will be back next time on another episode of Blind Spots and Second Thoughts.